Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Ninja Chickens channel. My name is Maria, and it's really lovely to have you here. It is a beautiful day in the Appalachian Mountains in western North Carolina, and I am sitting out here in my garden on the patio and have a few things to chat with you about related to knitting and eco-printing and projects and travel. So welcome, I'm glad you're here today. It's really nice to have you out. It's been 3 weeks since my last confession, my last knitting confession, and we've been doing lots of things. The first thing I wanted to tell you about is the trip that we took to Edisto Island. So my husband and I celebrated our 15th anniversary. I don't know how we chose Edisto. It was just, the Edisto Beach is an area in South Carolina that has a state park where you can camp out right on the water. So we thought it would be fun to take the camper down there, just the two of us, and have a weekend together. And I didn't know much about the island beforehand, but I found out some very interesting things. When you start digging into the history of a place, it's amazing what kinds of things you can find and how you can connect the dots between, your life and the life of people before. And so I want to read you a little bit about Edisto Island, or Edisto Beach, excuse me. When we were out there, we parked our camper out in the state park area, a little bit away from the beach, and there was some beautiful hiking trails around there, and we hiked out this one area to the Edisto State Park main education center and got to learn a lot about the island. But we also went to this place called, the Edisto Beach Mitten. And a midden is like a trash heap, basically, where things have been thrown for many years, and you can look into the history of a place from their trash. So because of this midden, they know that people have lived on Edisto in this area as far back as 2000 BC, because they found this hill, basically, of seashells, of oyster shells, and pottery shards and things that people had tossed to this specific area. Back, I think, in the 1600s, there was a captain of a ship who made note of this massive thing he saw from miles off, because it was this big white hill of shells. It's not as big anymore because tides and erosion have washed part of it away, but you can still see just this hill. It was supposedly, I think it was a half mile across. Tons and tons and tons of oyster shells and pieces of history. So they know that people have lived there for over 4,000 years. In the mid 1500s, there were the Edisto Indians living there. And then in the 1600s, late 1600s, after the Europeans had come over, they actually purchased the land, that area, from the Native Americans that lived there. I don't know the history of that and what purchased means, if they really truly did a fair trade, because people were not known for doing fair trades with the Native Americans, but apparently there was some sort of deal, and the English came over to colonize that area and started planting rice and indigo, and rice became a very huge crop for that area until the Revolutionary War. And during the Revolutionary War, the British destroyed that area, basically burnt down and destroyed everything. So everyone who lived there and decided to come back had to start back over. So when they went back there, they decided to start growing cotton, and they were using a specific seed of cotton that had been developed on the island. It was a long staple cotton is what it's called, or Sea Island cotton. And it became huge. It was a big thing. They were exporting it everywhere. A lot of money was being made for those few farmers who were farming there. But then the Civil War broke out, and the planters, the lords, were asked to leave, but the slaves were told they could stay as free people. But the whole island was again ransacked, burned down. So like there was nothing for them to live on. So after the Civil War, many of the planters returned again, and they started growing it again, thinking, okay, we've been through enough, a bunch of wars, all kinds of stuff's happened. And then a hurricane came and destroyed a bunch of their houses. And they actually had this island called Edingsville Beach. It was an island just off the coast where every summer all the rich would bring their furniture and all their goodies out to Edingsville Beach and stay at their fancy summer houses. And then they'd move back to Edisto for the winter. And then the hurricane demolished everything on the island, so all of that was gone. So after the hurricane, they thought, okay, that's it. Nothing more can happen. We've been through it all. We're going to rebuild. And they started planting that cotton again, the Sea Island cotton. And then the boll weevil came and demolished it. And that's what took it out of existence and completely eradicated it. So they've had a crazy history there. And I thought it was interesting that a lot of it was related to indigo, cotton, and other things that we as knitters and spinners use, and dyers. We had a beautiful time walking around the beach. It was really peaceful. It was just before, I think, the big tourist season, because it wasn't supposed to be that warm this time of year in April. But it was warm enough for us that it was perfect. The weather was beautiful. It was sunny pretty much the whole time we were there. And I'd never been to a beach that had this many shells. At the right time of tide, all kinds of shells were coming up. A lot of oyster shells and I think they were just called pen shells or quill shells, and all kinds of whelks, and they were gorgeous. And the first day we were there, we'd just gotten there and we were walking around the beach, and my husband had to take a phone call, and I just looked down and I saw this get washed up on the shore. Isn't that beautiful? The colors and the stripes, it's so amazing. And then on the inside, it's like marble. So when I brought these home, Leaf loved all the shells I brought home. When we brought them home, we did a lot of researching into how whelks grow, and they're just snails. And it's kind of cool to think of a big snail on the bottom of the ocean. We found some others. This is another really beautiful one. Let's see. It focuses for a second and then it wants to go away. But you can see the stripes and the colors, so pretty. So millions of years ago, this beach was not a beach. It was a grassy area, and the dinosaurs roamed in this area. So you can actually find a lot of fossils. You can actually find a lot of fossils in this area. And all the fossils are black, and I can't remember the reason why, and I couldn't find it on the internet. I'm sure it's out there, but there is something to do with that area of the water that the fossils become gray and black. So I know that this isn't super, well, part of it actually has to do with the peat in that area. There is a lot of tannins that flow into the Edisto River, and it's called a black river because it looks black, dark brown, black, because of all the tannins that flow into the river from the plants along there. And the river turns black from all of those tannins. It's like tea, the river. So I imagine that has something to do with the color of the fossils. But I did find this whelk, which may not be that old. It just looks it because it's gray. And the inside, again, it just reminds me of marble. Let's see if I can get it to focus. I think it's just beautiful. And then I found this one, which has obviously been tossed and turned a lot. But again, look at the shine of the inside. So pretty. So I came back with a bunch of these, and Leaf's been playing with them a lot. He's been enjoying them. Sorry, I'm at a glass table. So I think that's it about Edisto. We had a beautiful time. We're actually going to take the kids back there in the fall because it was peaceful, it was relaxing, it was rejuvenating, and I think they would really enjoy it too, especially the shell collecting. So I finished, while I was there, the one finished object that I have, and that is my sock arm sweater And I'm not wearing it today because it's pretty warm out here. I love how it turned out. The colors turned out beautifully. I love how the natural dyes just blend into one another. They go together so well. So the main body is butterfly pea flower. This is also butterfly pea flower from a second dip. Then we have marigold, Saxon indigo. This was speckle dyed with butterfly pea flower and cochineal and birch, I think. This is another one. The green is another. Let's see if I can get that green to show a little better. It's much brighter in person. I have some really good pictures up on Ravelry if you wanted to see those. But the green is another butterfly pea flower when I had added some alum and then washing soda. So I just striped them along from different sock blanks that I had, and I think it turned out beautifully. I cast on for a large, for larger hips, and then I decreased to a medium for my chest. I think other than using a size 3 needle for the ribbing instead of a 4, I think that's the only thing I changed until I got to the neck. So you are supposed to pick up the stitches and then knit a very small amount, and it looked, so it didn't say how many stitches to pick up, the number. It just says, you know, how many per, like pick up every stitch along or pick up 3 out of every 4. So I ended up getting about 100 stitches when I picked them up, according to the pattern. And the neckband was really tight and really skinny, and it just did not look good. So I ripped the whole thing out, and then I picked it up a little differently so that I had 114 stitches at the end. And that seemed to have turned out better. And I knit about twice as much as was what was called for the neckband. And I like it. I haven't worn it yet because it's been too warm. I had Kaya model it for me when I was taking pictures, and it looked so good on her, and she really liked it that I offered it to her, and she didn't know what it was called. And I said, "Do you want it? Would you wear it?" And she goes, "I love it, Mom, but the arms are kind of like wearing socks on your arms." And I just had to laugh, and I was like, "Well, that's actually what it's called, Kaya. It's the sock arm sweater." So she decided she wanted me to knit her one with 3 stripes, 3 big stripes in pastel, but she wants it to be bulkier. So this is an upcoming project. It's called the Warm You Up sweater, but actually this sweater has some color work and some cables in it. And what she wanted is an oversized sweater that has a bit of a turtleneck that's super soft, but she didn't want any extra flair to it. No color work or cables or anything, just straight stockinette with 3 stripes. And what she's looking for is this. So I picked these up. This is Quince and Company, a pastel blue, a yellow, and a pink. And it's going to have 1 large stripe at the top, and then the yellow in the middle, and then the pink at the bottom. So we'll use the Warm You Up pattern, but I won't put the cables or the color work in. So that is going to be a cast on very soon. And I'm excited because I've knit Kaya a lot of things in the past, and she's thankful, but she doesn't wear them. She never wears the knitted socks or scarves or anything that I've made her. There's one sweater that she has worn a lot, but it's now too small for her. And she's just, knitwear isn't her thing. It's not her style. So when she asked me to knit her this, I was like, absolutely. And hopefully she'll like it and it'll come out the way she wants and she'll wear it. So I don't have any other works or finished objects, but I have one more work in progress, and I'm almost done. I'm going to finish this today, I think. And it is Maya's Mameluker bloomers, underwear, however you want to call them. I have about, I don't know, 8 more rows maybe on the leg ribbing, and then I will be done. I'm using Blacker Yarns Samite and Tamar for these, and I really like it. It's working out well. They're 2 different yarn bases, but I think they go well together, and I love the colors together. Let's see. I knit it according to pattern, except I doubled the length of the ribbing on the bottom here because I just wanted a little bit more over the thigh. So this is about what it would have looked like if I'd cast it off where I should have, and then I knit a little bit more. The only problem I've been having, and it's funny because I looked at this and I was like, that's not going to fit over my hip. So I tried it on and it does, luckily. But then I looked at this and I thought, Sorry, there's a car going by. I'll wait till they're done. My mother-in-law lives way up the hill, up there. So occasionally you'll hear the cars go by. Otherwise, it's the end of the road, which is nice. So I looked at this and I thought, whoa, that's massive. That's never going to fit. Of course it fits perfectly. My butt is larger than I'd like to think it is. But yeah, so it fits really well. I like it. It's cozy, but this cast on, so I believe it's the Samite. Let me see if I can find that for you. Yeah, so the silk blend. The Samite is just wool and silk, but it is not a stretchy yarn at all. You know how when you can take a piece of yarn and go like this, sometimes there's a lot of give to it. This is the Samite. There's nothing. There's no give at all. I didn't think about that when I was using it for the ribbing. It's a lovely yarn, but even though the cast-ons are usually stretchy, it's just barely stretchy enough to get over my hips. So when I take it off and put it on, I have to be really careful. And the last time I tried it on, I was taking it off and I was like, oh, this is great. And I just started taking it off and I popped some stitches. So the cast on is gonna have to come out. So what I'm thinking about doing is picking up a few rows down, picking up all the stitches and then knitting up and doing a super stretchy cast off. And I don't know if I'm gonna do it in the Samite or if I will use instead the Tamar, because the Tamar is a mix of, well, it's 100% wool, but it does have a little more give. Let me see if I can find an example for you. Not much, but a little bit. So I don't know, or maybe I'll just try a stretchy cast off and see if that's enough. But it's almost done. I will hopefully have this done this evening and then I can cast on a few new things. One will be that sweater for Kaya, and the other is going to be a new pair of socks. I purchased, when I went to Edinburgh Yarn Festival, I purchased a bunch of yarn with the intention of trying out good, sturdy, natural yarns for socks that didn't have any superwash or didn't have any nylon or plastics in them. And one that I got was from Mole View. And this is a indigo dyed Welsh mule. So it's a crossbreed of the blue-faced Leicester Ram and a local Welsh hill breed. And it looks like a big yarn, right? But it's a fingering weight. It's a nice fluffy fingering weight. So I thought this would be really nice for the new socks that have just come out by Hannah-Lisa Haferkamp, the Kuopio socks. It looks like for me it will be enough to keep me occupied and enjoy the knit, but not so much cable that I would want to put them down. And I think that this yarn will fill in those socks really nicely. So I'll be casting this one on. So those are the two cast-ons I hope to start before I see you guys next time. And those are my two objects to show you. So what else do I have to tell you about? Oh, this is going to be another for the Knit Your Bottoms cowl. It ends June 1st, so it's going for another couple of weeks. And there are some lovely prizes. Those are in the chatter and finished objects thread if you want to see those prizes. There's still enough time, I think, if you're a quick knitter, to cast something on and knit something for the Knit Your Bottoms cowl. And if you're interested in seeing some fun things that you can knit for the bottom half, you should go over to the finished objects thread and see what things people have already finished up. It's been really neat seeing what people have created. There have been a couple of the Maya's Mama Lookers and a couple of skirts and some leggings, I believe. But yeah, head on over there. I haven't said yet, my name's Maria. You can find me on Instagram as ninja.chickens and on Ravelry as Ninja Chickens. And there's a Ninja Chickens Ravelry group. And all of the information you can find through links at ninjachickens.org. I spent the early morning, I got up nice and early. I knew it was supposed to be almost 90 degrees yesterday. So I got up nice and early to do a little bit of eco-printing. I've been wanting to experiment on some cottons and some silks, some raw silk and different thickness of silk to see what I can create, because I'm going to be doing some classes in the upcoming months and want to know which of these fabrics are the best to print on for my students. So I did some experimenting yesterday and that was a lot of fun. And let me show you some of the things that I came up with. This is all of it right here. back along the fence. I'll bring one over so you can see it. It's different types of silk and cotton. This is silk noil, so it's a raw silk. And I experimented a little bit with these, and I think they turned out beautifully. Let's see if I can get to a spot where you can see them a little better. And then I also did a few sock blanks and some silk scarves, and I think this one is my favorite. I absolutely love how that turned out. So in the Ravelry group, I have started a ask a question thread because I get a lot of questions through private messages and through comments on the YouTube channel. So if you have a question about eco-printing, about my designs, about anything, about where I live, feel free to leave them in there and then I can answer them on the podcast. And if I don't have the chance to answer it on the podcast, I can answer it in the group. So that's in the Ravelry Ninja Chickens group. One question that has already come in was by Hannah, who lives in Finland, and she asked me a bit about eco-printing. So I was just going to go through the process with this for you and let you know how I created this. Eco-printing can be as simple as taking a leaf, putting it on a fabric, rolling it up, and either steaming it or simmering it and putting heat in so that you can set the color. But there are so many variations to what you can do related to colors you add or change in the pH or how long you let it sit or how tight you roll it or what kind of fabric you use. So one way is not the only way. There's many, many different things you can do to create beautiful eco prints. This is a thick silk. I think it's 19.5 millimeters. So the tighter the weave of something, the crisper the print is going to be because the color of the plant won't seep through the weave as much, if that makes sense. So this is a 19.5 millimeter silk, and the first thing I did with this one is to dunk it in a cochineal dye bath. So I ground up some cochineal, put in some hot water, and I didn't even strain it actually. I just put this in and let it sit for about 20 minutes. When I took it out, there were some little chunks of cochineal on it, so I dunked it quickly in some clear water to rinse those off. You can leave them on if you want, and it will leave speckles, kind of like that little speckle right there. You'll get more of them if you leave the cochineal pieces on. So I put it in pink. Then I laid it out on the ground and I put down my plants. This one has two different types of maple. It has some black walnut. It has some rose and some eucalyptus. And I believe that's it. And then on top of it, I put what's called a blanket. So basically you're covering something up. I took a piece of cotton bed sheet that I had ripped up that was the same size as this, and I dunked it in an iron bath. So it's a tiny amount of, you can either use old pieces of iron and a little bit of vinegar and create your own iron bath, or you can use iron sulfate crystals, crumbles, and just a tiny bit, like an eighth of a teaspoon and a quart or two of water, and make your own iron bath. So I took the cotton, I put it in the iron bath, and I laid it out on top of this. Then I rolled it around a PVC tube. I don't have those out here. They're about this big around. I rolled it tightly so that there was good contact against the silk with the plants. And there weren't a lot of wrinkles or whatever, because that will change how it turns out. I don't know if this one has any wrinkles in it, but yeah, so this is a very mild one, but right here there's a little wrinkle, and that is a spot where it won't connect with the blanket as well, so it didn't get as much iron. So I rolled it up, tied it really tight, labeled it so I knew it was in here, and then I put it in my bath. I have a big steamer back there, a big turkey roaster, I think is what it's called, and I'll put the big pot on top of there with a little water in the bottom and some rocks so that these do not sit in the water. You can simmer them in the water or you can steam them, and I like steaming them better because you use less water, and because if I have something like this in there with something else that's white, some of the color from this will seep onto the one that's white. So none of the colors mix because they're not in the water if I steam them. If you want the colors to mix and you want to even maybe put them in a dye bath while you're simmering them, then you can do that too. With this one I didn't want, so I steamed it, and I steamed it for a good solid hour. I brought it up to a rolling boil and steamed it for an hour, and then I turned it off and I let it sit in there for, well, probably about 3 hours because I fell asleep and took a nap. And then I took it out in the evening and unrolled it. So altogether it was steamed and rolled up for a good 12 to 14 hours. Steamed for an hour and then stayed rolled up and warm for another 12 to 14 hours. And then I just let it dry. I'll let this sit for 2 or 3 days, and then I'll rinse it to make sure that no colors bleed, and then dry it again and it'll be done. And this is going to be one of the samples for the classes. So all of these were done the same way. This one, as you can see, it's white, did not have a blanket on top. It was actually, I did half of it. I did half of the scarf and then I folded it in half. So the top and bottom part of the scarf have the same print, if you can see. It's eucalyptus, lupine flower, and rose petals. And I was hoping to get a nice teal out of the lupine flower, but it didn't give me a whole lot. And I wasn't sure if it would. I've used it for dyeing before, and it takes a long time to get the color out of it, so I wasn't sure if an hour would work or if I would need to actually steam it for longer. So I may try that again. This one is the same type of silk. It's the 19.5 inch, or 19.5 millimeter thick silk, but you can tell it's got a much different print on it. So what I did with this one, I used an iron blanket again, but I put out, I think it was mostly maple, let's see, maple, lilac, blue iris were on here. And then I put the iron blanket on it and I rolled it up on itself. The leaves printed on the front and the back as it rolled. It seeped through, which creates a more dense pattern, if you see what I mean. And you can see this little maple leaf here, and then you'll see it farther down much lighter because of how it, yes, so here it is right here. Here's the same one right here. It rolled up on itself and the color seeped through. It didn't do that on the other one because it was a thicker blanket, and I put aluminum foil in between so that it would roll up and not bleed onto itself. I didn't mention that. You can use a thicker cotton or aluminum foil or something that you can keep them from bleeding through if you want a crisper print. So yeah, that's that one. And then sometimes the blankets turn out just as beautiful. So this is an iron blanket. It's just a piece of cotton bed sheet. You can see where I'd ripped it. And I used this to put the iron onto the fabric. You can do it different ways. You can dip your fabric in iron from the beginning and put plants on it. You could take your plants and dip it into just the leaf and dip it into the iron and place it on your fabric. Or you can use a blanket. There's many different ways to get the iron on there if you want the iron. What happens with iron is it reacts with the tannins in the leaves and some of the other chemicals in the leaves, and it creates a darker print. So this is the blanket from the iron, and let me show you what I mean. If you see around the edges of the maple or around the black walnut, you can see where it leaves a halo of darkness. Let me see if I can get it so you can see this better. There we go. You see how dark it is around the leaf? Or this is a nice one too. So that's one of the things that the iron does. I'd like to try this with a bunch of other colors too. I've used a lot of cochineal, some madder, and a little bit of logwood. But I want to try it with some other ones because it's a lot of fun. I'd like to get a nice green, deep green. So I might try it with the indigo. I'm not sure how the indigo vat will change color if it's heated up that much with the steam. So that's one of the things I've been working on this weekend. I am going to have a small release before I head over to Europe for my trip this summer with my family. On June 2nd, which is a Saturday at 5 p.m., there will be a small release of the new sock blanks. And yeah, I think that's it. Oh, for Mother's Day, I just realized I haven't shown you my earrings. My daughter made me some earrings, and she knows me well. These are a little teacup and a spoon, and with it goes a plate. Aren't those cute? So she made me a little tea set. And then the other two that she made are a little spool, and she said it's yarn. She couldn't find any knitting stuff, and a ruler. And I love that they're separate. They're different. It's not the same for each ear. And then my son, he gave me a cute card with hearts all over it and sparkle paper. And then he and my husband went out in the morning when I was eco-printing and did the grocery shopping, because usually I go out on Sunday morning, so they did that for me. And he came running back to the backyard after they got back home, carrying this massive thing of toilet paper, 27 rolls. And he said, "Happy Mother's Day." And then my husband came running around the corner with another 27 rolls and screamed, "Happy Mother's Day." And I was like, why do I need 54 rolls of toilet paper for Mother's Day? And Leaf said, "Because we're going to build a fort." So Toby and Leaf spent the afternoon building a toilet paper fort in the house and had a blast. And it was on sale. He figured, why not get it? It's like 2 for 1, and it's really great. And we all need toilet paper, so now we have toilet paper all over the house because we don't have enough space for it in our bathroom. So there's some tucked in the living room, there's some tucked in our bedroom. But I thought that was funny. I think I've covered pretty much everything. If I think of anything more, I'll save it for next time. I hope you guys have a fabulous couple of weeks. I plan to podcast hopefully at least once more before I go overseas. Kai and I will be leaving the second week of June to head to France for 11 days. And then we'll be meeting my family in Rome, meeting Toby and Leaf over in Rome for another couple of weeks. And it's going to be really fun. I'm very excited. I'm having a hard time with my Italian because I keep wanting to switch back to Spanish, but we're getting there. I'm learning at least the basics of how to say, how to ask for what I need and speak a little bit. So, yep, I hope you guys are doing well and having a beautiful spring or fall if you are in the South. And we'll talk to you soon.